Sagara Ujiaki sits down to write his will, his skull feeling like it was trampled by horses. He has been racking his brain all day over how to divide up his vast lands and assets. He thinks about his wife, how she has stood by him all these years, blessing him with beautiful sons and daughters, and decides he should pass on to her nothing, and the same amount for his daughters. All his lands were going to one son. That kid is so awesome. The only thing he gives his wife is a modest income to keep the rice cooker running until she dies. Now, it might seem like this guy was born allergic to decency, but it actually made a lot of sense for him, and I'll explain why. The winds of change were blowing in the Kamakura period of Japan, and they blew away all the rights and freedoms of women. The big change, carving potholes in the highway of women, was parents stopped passing down their lands to multiple children and chose one lucky child instead. This change hit women hard, and I'll tell you why. There was another major bad news for women, but we'll talk about that later. In the early Kamakura period, the ladies had it better. Usually in a marriage, a man moved into his wife's family. He was pretty much forced to treat her well under her roof. But the period began right after this big civil war ended, and many hot-blooded warriors won new lands for their service. All that blood had to go somewhere, and it went downwards. So they started families on those new lands. There was a new marriage trend, especially in warrior families. Wives started moving into their husband's family. Some people don't need much from a marriage. They just need a partner to love, to grow old with, and eventually have lazy, routine sex with. But they're dumb. Not expecting more is how you lose rights, sister. Now, it wasn't that bad yet. Wives could still own property separate from their husbands. If there was one thing you wanted to have back in the day, it would have been land. Property owners had status and financial independence. If your husband divorced you, you still had income. A woman could also pass down land to her children, which not only allowed her family to prosper, it also made sure the kids thought twice before ignoring her calls. Inheritance was the main way a woman gained property, usually from her parents. This allowed her to keep strong ties with her birth family. It was a huge source of support, money sometimes, and if she ever had to go to court against her husband, her birth family could defend her. Husbands also left land to their wives sometimes, but wives almost never left land to their husbands. Researchers in the field of why are women bitches offer a few theories on why. Maybe it showed that a daughter generally had lower status than a son, so her birth family had a stronger claim on her property. Maybe women were weaker financially and couldn't defend their property rights. Maybe because women lived longer than men, they just didn't have as much of a chance to pass down land to their husbands. Or it could be because women have always been invested in their children's future, like we see throughout history, and they have never been just happy with their husbands ever. Afterwards, the researchers scuttled off to study why women always want to go places on the weekends. Now, you didn't have to wait until death to give away some land, but that was playing with fire for wives because of this thing called divorce. Only husbands could initiate divorce, so a husband could accept his wife's land, then later go sayonara and still keep the land. All this to say, women had economic freedom thanks to their property rights. But in the second half of the Kamakura period, they lost it when parents revealed the fact that they had a favorite child. If you have siblings, you've always suspected this, but medieval Japanese kids knew this all along. Problem 1. The most common way that parents passed down their land was to slice it up like sashimi between their kids. Over time, land holdings got smaller and smaller. Thanks for the square meter, Dad. Maybe I can bury you in it. Problem 2. The Mongols. Twice, the Mongols invaded Japan, but after some convincing by Japanese warriors, they twice took a swim to the ocean floor. The government promised land rewards to the defenders of the realm, and delivered the rewards like Amazon Prime if you forgot to pay. They couldn't deliver. They struggled to find available land. Because of these problems, land became really valuable, and when you have valuables, you're gonna get robbed. Warriors who ran out of Mongol wars and were pissed at empty promises started fighting over smaller and smaller chunks of real estate. Warrior families soon realized that cutting a sushi roll 100 times only leaves everyone hungry, so they found ways to keep their lands whole and unify the family. More parents started passing down land to a single child, usually a son, who became head of the household. All property and income went to him, and his siblings became his dependents. Having one head of the family was useful because you wanted one commander-in-chief calling the shots in war, instead of 3 siblings arguing over whether or not to charge that hill. Why did parents choose sons over daughters? Well, a warrior class was rising, and they didn't want no children-loving, period-having women commanding soldiers, even though the heads of these samurai families often stayed cozy at home and sent other people into battle instead. The government wanted warriors ready for combat in case the Mongols came back for another dip in the Sea of Japan. In 1286, they even banned female inheritances in Kyushu, because that was where invading Mongols would land. All over the country, the pins of women's rights were being knocked down by the bowling balls of warriors. No one wanted to give daughters land, because when they married, it would just go to the new family. When a daughter did receive land, it often came with strings attached, like she had to bear a son, or her land would go to her brother, or she could only keep it until death, no passing it on. Court documents were full of inheritance battles. One woman accused her brother of forging their father's will. Another woman accused a sibling of stealing a will. One guy even claimed he had no sister. "Your Honor, I've never met her in my life." "We're twins, Kenji." As women watched their status and financial independence scatter like cherry blossoms in the wind, they were hit with another curveball from the Kamakura period that you wouldn't think would affect women that much, but it was disastrous. The Japanese started basing society around families instead of clans. What's the difference? Early Japan had these things called uji, or clans. In the imperial court, everyone belonged to a clan, even if you were from different households and lived in different neighborhoods. If you saw another member of your clan, you'd be like, "Hey bro, I like your fan," or something, because you were in the same tribe, you know? But in the Kamakura period, powerful families started popping up in the provinces, all over the country. It was hard to feel that warm, fuzzy connection to another clan member if he lived 100 miles away. Also, because the Minamoto clan won the Civil War, everyone and their mother's dog claimed to be a Minamoto. You couldn't throw a rock without hitting a Minamoto, and everyone got sick of complimenting fans. And so people started identifying more with their ie, their household or family. A household was what it sounds like, one family controlled by a couple. At first, this was pretty good for women. A wife had high status and basically ran daily life within the household. She could even have a family line of descendants totally separate from her husband. She just had to adopt a child who could inherit her land. In cases where the husband moved into the wife's family, succession passed down the female line. But as more wives moved into their husbands' families, and households quit splitting up property to multiple children, and women started losing property rights, things took a turn. Japanese society went through a big change. This is really important to understand. Family names began to carry weight. Remember, people were moving towards single-son inheritance. A family's land holdings could last for generations without splitting up. They soon turned into family-ruled territories. Everyone's job was to continue the family line and bring glory to the family name. Japan was being split up into many kingdoms with their own laws controlled by powerful families. The bond between a wife and her birth family, which was so strong in the early Kamakura days, frayed into thin threads. In the new society, samurai families rose to power, ruled by warriors. A wife's duty was to pop out an heir for her husband's family if she married into it. The desire to protect the family pushed women away from land ownership. By the end of the 1400s, a woman's property was under the control of the household, led by the man of the house, who was also a military commander. Now, we've mostly been talking about women in the samurai and aristocratic classes. The rights of lower-class women like peasants, merchants, and artisans were also slipping, just not as fast. Peasants might still have practiced multiple inheritance as late as the 1600s. Anyways, so Sagara Ujiaki, from the beginning, had a reason for passing down his estate to only one son. It was to make sure the family endured after his death, and to not get swallowed by other, more powerful families. Inheritance battles got ruthless. Blood is thicker than water, and brothers and sisters often wanted to see if that was physically true. Click here to learn all about their brutal inheritance battles. We have some new patrons today: Corey, Cheshire Dog, Funeral Fairy, Kristen G, Fat Orphan, and Sleeping Onamusha. Thank you so much. Alright, I love you, and spread the knowledge.